Welcome to lecture number 65, historical topic 6.11, Reform in the Gilded Age. The theme today is social structures. The learning objective is explain how different reform movements responded to the rise of industrial capitalism in the Gilded Age. The first of two key concepts says a number of artists and critics, including agrarians, utopians, socialists, and advocates of the social gospel, championed alternative visions for the economy and U.S. society. We'll go through each of the groups and see how they're trying to respond to the growing inequality between the rich and the poor, industrialists and workers during the Gilded Age. The contrast between the two groups is quite stark in this period because of how massive wealth acquired by industrialists contrasts with the crowded and dirty conditions that most workers have to endure in cities. Artists responded to these conditions by shifting to new art styles of realism and impressionism that focused on everyday subjects. Famous American artists during this time include Mary Cassatt. Her impressionist work is seen on the top left. Frederick Remington, who painted images of the West, like the example on the top right. He tries to capture the people who lived there and the difficult conditions that they had to endure to survive. James McNeill Whistler, another realist painter with his famous work in the bottom left known as Whistler's Mother. And the critics of the economic conditions and the hierarchy that developed trended toward utopian movements. Henry George wrote the book Progress and Poverty, in which he argues that the current capitalist system is starting to create a lot of inequality, so therefore this system cannot be as good as we think it is. Edward Bellamy, in his book Looking Backward to 2000 to 1887, envisions himself being in the year 2000 and looking back at the year 1887. He thought that he would clearly see that the system of the 1880s was far more unequal compared to what he envisioned would be the case in the year 2000. He thought that by the year 2000, Americans would have become enlightened or figured out a new system in which poverty and greed and inequality had all gone away. For those reasons, he was called a utopian. He thought that the things were going to be a lot better in the future than they were in the Gilded Age. In reality, economic inequality in the U.S. went down in the middle of the 20th century, but grew again from the 1980s to the present day. Agrarians were farmers or those who advocated for farmers. At the time, farmers are crushed by debt and low crop prices. Low prices keep them from being able to get out of debt. For that reason, they're looking for loose monetary policy. That means they support adding more money in the money supply to drive up inflation. They want to do it in either the form of greenbacks or coining silver alongside gold. More money in the money supply would allow them to repay their debts a lot faster because the principal on the loans they took on would be worth less with depreciated money. This wasn't a popular idea for those who were in heavy industries or the captains of industry. If inflation is introduced into the economy, then the wealth that they had accrued would be worth less. For that reason, the silverite position, that was to coin silver in addition to gold, was often made fun of in national publications. The cartoons on the bottom of the slide are examples of this. In one, a person with word silverite written on their hat is sticking up all of the industrialites and even an industrial worker. The bottom right is a cartoon of William Jennings Bryan holding a cross of gold, mocking a populist speech he made at the Democratic National Convention in which he's criticizing the gold standard. Socialists obviously want to make the labor and management structure more equitable for the worker. Labor organizer Eugene V. Debs was involved in the Pullman strike and begins to move closer toward socialism. He creates the Socialist Party in the United States and the socialist organization, the International Workers of the World, or IWW. The IWW, sometimes referred to as the Wobblies, were also co-founded by Lucy Parsons. She was born into slavery before the Civil War. Then she married someone who was involved in the Haymarket Square riot and had been executed for his involvement. She is seen as a radical since she wants management and capitalists to make reforms that help the workers. The social gospel, specifically named by the key concept, shows how religion becomes involved in this reform movement. It sought to apply Christian principles to social problems. It wanted people to focus more on the problems of the world as opposed to focusing on merely gaining salvation. The rationale was that if they solved the problems of society, then they would attain salvation, not the other way around. Walter Rauschenbusch was a Baptist minister who's heavily associated with the social gospel. He worked in New York City in poor neighborhoods like Hell's Kitchen. He helped feed people and find jobs for them. Other religious denominations and organizations also turned to ameliorate social problems. The Catholic Church and Cardinal James Gibbons were in support of the Knights of Labor. The Salvation Army, which was a religious organization founded in London in 1865, becomes active in America at the turn of the century to help those who were struggling in cities. As was the case in the previous reform movements, women were a large part of their success. They are covered in the next key concept. Many women sought greater equality with men, often joining voluntary organizations, going to college, and promoting social and political reform. Women's colleges were covered in the previous lecture, but the examples are still below. Smith College, Bryn Mawr, Mount Holyoke. By 1900, women were 1/3 of all college students, and about 70% of all colleges admitted women into their classes. However, when they graduated, they did not have similar opportunities to men. So instead of going into white-collar work after college like men would, some women were able to find meaningful positions by becoming active in reform movements. The reform movements that they were active in include the settlement house movement, temperance, and voting rights. Two of these movements are continuities from the previous period. Jane Addams and her work through Hull House was the leader in the settlement house movement. Located in the city of Chicago, Addams and Hull House laid down the foundation for the future professions of social work. The temperance movement had various organizations working together to ban the sale and consumption of alcohol. The Women's Christian Temperance Union, led by Frances Willard, and the Anti-Saloon League. They're successful in getting states to pass blue laws. That means that they are limiting the sale of alcohol. Finally, the movement to gain voting rights has the same leaders as before, Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They're still hampered by court case decisions from the previous period, like Virginia Minor versus Happersett, in which women were not allowed to vote, though their rights of citizenship were reinforced. They're still fighting for women's rights in this historical period through organizations like the NAWSA, the North American Women's Suffrage Association. In the early 20th century, they will take on the name suffragettes and will finally achieve the constitutional amendment that grants women the right to vote. Alright, here's the recap. Inequality of the period began to be criticized by artists, utopians, and reformers. Economic issues for agrarians and labor unions led more radical positions and stances. Religious groups turned attention to societal problems like the social gospel, and women continued to fight for equality. Thank you for watching. If you would like to watch the next lecture, you can click on the video link on the screen, and if you're looking for more practice to help you on the AP exam, you can visit apushslides.com. I wish you the very best in all of your studying and look forward to seeing you back on the next lecture.